live from the Mutant booth at the 2014 Body Power UK Expo. You know me, Big Ron Partlow, and I'm really happy to have a couple of great guests on today. We got Dan and Mark from Muscle Jeans. How's it going, Dan?
Good to meet you. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
Mark.
Good to meet you.
Yeah, it's good to see you again.
Cheers. You too, buddy.
I met you guys at the Arnold, right?
We did.
We had a good conversation. You guys actually, we left the conversation, I felt like I was a little bit maybe smarter than I thought. We had a technical conversation about stuff. It felt
Absolutely,
good.
yeah.
That's high praise. That's high praise from Big Ron. Wow.
I think we felt that we'd learned a few things
Yeah,
as well,
we
didn't
did,
we?
yeah.
No, I'm a huge fan of the kind of, I don't know what I want to call it, a trend, because it's just the wave of people like you with these intense educations coming into the bodybuilding with real science and trying to bring real science into what we do, because you know we've been the kind of the black sheep of the athletic world for what 30, 40 years, and we haven't gotten any credit from most people for any of the stuff that we pioneered, nutrition and training and supplements. And you know, look at how Olympics and NHL hockey, no one used to lift weights, and now they have to train. You know, bodybuilding has pioneered so much, and now we're really happy to have guys with scientific minds, scientific thinking, real studies, actually caring how to make muscle bigger, because no one's cared about that. You know, maybe adding weight to a football player to make him heavier, but no one's really cared about proper hypertrophy. And so, you know, we're really glad to hear, you know, what you guys have to say, and you know, hopefully we can make us bigger in shorter periods of time.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Well, I think one of the cool things from when we met at the Arnold's was the statement that you said of, you train, you get big, you know you're right with what you do, but you don't always know why you're right with what you do. And that's one of the things that we kind of, it's an ethos within the company, that we enjoy working with bodybuilders, physique athletes, because we know they know what they're talking about. We know they know how to get big, and we want to understand why.
Right, the sort of the anecdotal evidence is mountainous, but without any scientific proof, a lot of people don't want to care, they don't want to listen to us.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's where we see we fit.
So here we have Muscle Jeans. Why don't you tell us about Muscle Jeans? What is Muscle Jeans?
Okay. Well, Muscle Jeans is a genetic testing company, and we specialize in fitness, nutrition, and supplement-related genes, and where we can actually examine for certain mutations in certain genes, and we can give recommendations about how you can better achieve your goals, whether it's faster or whether it's just better overall goals, using your gene results as the blueprint. And of course, your gene results are a blueprint. Everyone's genes are individual, and we're looking at the individual. It's the most highly personalized form of training, nutrition, and supplementation that you can possibly follow.
And how long have you been working on this? Like, we are using studies that are even older than you guys are?
Yeah, I mean, we founded Muscle Jeans, or we founded the concept of Muscle Jeans October 2011. And we've been working on the concept now for, well, since October 2011. The research and development of the product kind of finished in terms of actually being able to launch Muscle Jeans July 2013, and we've been selling since then. And we've enjoyed, you know, some really, really good success, good growth, and we're delighted to have now a full academic academy to the company, where we have a full research team where we specialize in genetics research and research relating to sports nutrition, sports performance, and supplements, all related to genetics.
Okay, so now, what if someone wants to get tested? Why don't you walk us through the process?
Okay.
The regular guy at home who trains and he wants to try to maximize what he's doing.
Okay, so the regular guy at home, and you know, he might look at, say, someone like you and say, I want to be a bodybuilder. So he'd come to us, he'd go to our website, musclejeans.com, and he'd buy a gene test. Now, we send you this in the post, and it arrives, you open up the gene test, and in here we have a swab, which actually isn't in here at the moment.
That's a sample.
Yeah, it's a sample.
I used it as a Q-tip earlier.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It
It's similar to a Q-tip. And what you do is you swirl the swab around the inside of your mouth, so you're essentially extracting buccal cells from the cheeks. They then get sent back to the lab. We extract the DNA from the swab, and it's from that DNA, we run it through our gene testing systems, and we find out specific mutations in certain genes, and it's from that we can create the recommendations.
Okay, and then you send them their personalized file, exactly like the one that I got.
Absolutely,
emailed to me.
Yeah, so once we've got your results, we formulate a recommendation program, and we email it out to you and you have it to read, go through, and then you have the full access of the entire Muscle Genes team, which is a pretty substantial team now of sort of 15 plus people, where we're at your disposal to essentially answer questions about your recommendations. If there's things that you don't understand, if there's things you want a few more details on, it's a full follow-up service as well.
Okay, so let's get to my results. You guys swabbed me at the Arnold, just like I've been swabbed for court dozens of times. We don't need to get into that. But here we are, my results. Now, I've read the recommendations. I thought it was really interesting. So I just want to know, you know, these are the 6 markers that you're looking at. How many variations are there for each? What do mine mean to me?
Right. Well, for each of these, we've got, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but we got 6 different genes. These are the genes that are, these are the main, we test a lot more genes than this, but these are the main genes that are associated with your ability to build muscle, how you react to certain training protocols, nutrition, etc. So those, we only look at genes that we can give science-based, evidence-based recommendations about. We don't choose genes that are for health or other things like that. So what we do is we look at these genes, and they all, there's some crossover, but basically if we look at this first one, it's called the ACE gene. Now we're not going to say what Ron is here, but the gene he's got.
Why, is that embarrassing? Am I terrible?
Yeah, I keep that around. No, actually, not surprisingly, John's got, I'd look at this and I'd know immediately that there's nothing stopping John getting big, and there's a few things that are uniquely quite good. So it's a much better than average gene profile for muscle hypertrophy. So what we got here is the first is the ACE gene. For each of these genes, there's 3 possible results. And I don't want to bore people with alleles and all that stuff, but let's just say there's 3 results. Now for the ACE gene, if you're one certain result, you'd be more of a person who responds to lower rep, lower volume training. It'd be like Dorian Yates type. A lot of guys know who Dorian Yates is. He used to train maybe 10 sets of really hard exercise for one body part, and he'd get out of the gym, just about, Sometimes he was down to as much as little as that.
Even less,
And we all know Dorian responded to that quite well because he became one of the biggest guys that ever lived, as far as, you know, he's 6-time Mr. Olympia. Now, but we know that everyone doesn't respond that way because Ronnie Coleman did the exact opposite.
Just like high volume, and everything twice a week.
That's right. Yeah, he did it twice a week.
Higher reps.
And Ronnie's actually, you know, he's said many times, long before we came up with Muscle Genes, that I go for 12 reps, but I really try to get 15. So he'd go into the gym and sit down on the bench wanting 12 reps, picks the weight he can get at least 12 reps with, and he usually tries to get about 14 or 15. You can look this is all on the internet.
And he would spend, you know, 5-6 times more amount of time in the gym per week than Dorian would.
Exactly.
He would be in the gym 6 days a week, 2 hours a day.
Exactly.
Where Dorian would be 45 minutes 4 times a week.
Exactly.
So that's the spectrum.
Exactly. So you can imagine when we were testing, we've tested both Ronnie and we've tested Dorian, and you can imagine what we were thinking. We were thinking, what if Dorian isn't that one? What if he's one of those ones? Then we're kind of in trouble. So fortunately, Dorian was the low volume gene. So so he responds to low volume, which we.
So what does mine mean?
Yours is, the other 2 are high volume. There's a very high volume and a moderately high volume. You're the moderately high volume. So there are guys that we might recommend would train a little more volume than you. It doesn't all depend on the ACE gene, but the ACE gene is the most important one for our recommendation as far as the number of reps, sets, and duration of rest between sets. Okay.
Right.
So because no one gene controls everything. So we always take them all. We've got a formula that weights how each gene in particular contributes to a trait. And that trait could be how you respond to reps and sets in this case. So then we look at actin 3. So actin 3 is, it determines a lot of things, including certain hormone profiles, etc., testosterone production, and especially inflammation and your ability to recover quickly from exercise, from resistance training. You are a high recovery person. You are the type of person that could train the same muscle group twice per week, like Ronnie Coleman.
Because I haven't done that extensively. You know, certain weaker body parts I've done to try to bring up. But when I read how you recommended to do it, it was different than what I'd been doing slightly.
Right.
But I was on the right track.
Did it work when you did a little extra volume for that body part?
Well, the things that I've done it for have definitely helped. So
Right.
I understand now why.
Yeah.
You know?
Because I mean, a lot of people say, yeah, but you should only work out each muscle group once per week. But I've talked to a lot of pros, and most of them tell me if they want to bring up a body part, they'll throw in an extra session of that body part. So they're telling.
So they're
telling us all that they know already.
That goes back to the anecdotal experience of what they think works for them.
Yeah, and you don't get to become an Olympia level bodybuilder or like Ron without knowing this stuff. You can't just be a genetic freak. You can't just work hard. You have to know what you're doing.
So what would be the opposite end of the spectrum of that?
The opposite end of the spectrum of that one would be someone who recovers quite slowly. Now there are advantages. This one is associated with a little more inflammation. So we'd give recommendations like maybe fish oil, a fish oil product, a high strength one that would decrease inflammation, moderate inflammations for better recovery.
I found it interesting that you said that I was high inflammation, because I have always, since day one of training for 24 years, gotten very sore from almost every single workout I've done.
Right.
And I always attributed that to, well, I know how to train, and I'm intense, and I'm training. And then I'll meet a guy with a great physique, and he's like, yeah, I don't really get sore. And I don't even understand how he doesn't get sore. Like Ronaldo quite often says he doesn't get sore. And I'll train quads, and I won't be able to flex them for a couple days.
Right.
And now I understand that that's an inflammation related. And so following your recommendations, I'm really going to work on minimizing inflammation to help recovery.
Some inflammation is good. You don't want to shut down the inflammation.
Yeah, you don't want to be pounding ibuprofen right before you train and shutting down your...
But even the inflammation doesn't necessarily prohibit you from training the body part again the following day, does it? We're not talking about recovery, we're just talking about it.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
So the opposite side of the spectrum would be someone we'd tell, you'd be more like the 5, train each body part once every 5 days, and then as you get more experience, probably once every 7 days to get full recovery, because you get the super compensation, right? If you look at someone after they train, their strength goes down the next day, it starts coming up, and then you get the super compensation where it gets a little tiny bit stronger than it was last workout.
And that's where you want to train it again.
Exactly. It's got to get it in that window. This can tell you where that window is. This can put you in that window. So it just gets you there faster. Like, you probably know your window. But young guys or people that just train a lot of different ways all the time never understand what the best way is for them.
For some people, it's getting there faster, but for other people, it's just finding that little extra percent.
For
guys like you, it might necessarily mean you're not. It's not all about getting there any quicker.
Like a tipping point where you're just all of a sudden making progress.
Exactly.
So what would the next one be?
Next one is PPAR CG. Now this one, really, you're looking to see that there's one of a certain allele. So if you've got a combination, a mixed one, so one of each. Because there's 3 you can have. You can have 2 of the same one on this side, 2 of the same one on this side, and 1 of each. If you have at least one of the C, what's called the C allele, we won't get into that, but it means that you have no restriction on your ability to build muscle and develop power from training. So you respond to training by getting stronger. So almost every power lifter will have one of these C genes in their PPAR. They've done quite a few studies to show that speed and power athletes almost always have one of the C's. So and
so I have 1 C.
You have 1 C. There may be a small advantage to having 2, but we won't say if you have 1 or 2 C's, but you have a C.
Okay. And now what's the next one there?
Next one's PER3. This is a bit of an interesting one. PER3, the scientist geeks call it the clock gene. And the clock, it's called that because it tells you what time of day you're both mentally and physically have a little bit higher performance. So if you've got what you've got, there's two results that are morning people. They're a little bit more bright in the morning. They get moving a little faster. They have better performance in the morning. And they're the kind of guys, if they don't get enough sleep, they're a mess. They're a wreck. They're miserable and etc. If they're the other third possibility are people that are evening people. They get up in the morning. They're very slowly. They're miserable. But then they during the day they perk up and they're always the last guy to leave the nightclub.
We've been looking at some interesting research for PER3 actually as well, because there might be evidence that, let's say for example you've got one gene combination here. When you go to a different time zone, there's every chance that it might flip to the other version. So you might end up actually, for example, for me, I'm much better training at night, but when I cross time zones, it might be that I then, all of a sudden, I'm not automatically going to want to be training at night in a different time zone.
Right.
I might actually be better at training in the morning, and that might be a long-term thing as well.
And this was one that I wanted to talk to you guys about because mine says, what about me?
That says you should be training. Now, I don't want to reveal your exact gene type outcome.
Oh, I don't mind.
You're not the strong version. You're a little in-between version. You're still more towards a morning person, but you're not 100% morning person.
Now, this is why I wanted to talk to you guys because I've never followed a normal clock like everyone. I worked in nightclubs for 15 years, so my morning was afternoon.
Yeah.
And that's always when I chose to train.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's when you wake up. It's not
right.
It's got nothing to do with how the moon, where the moon is in the sky.
I wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
So
and one of the things with your genes as well that you have to remember is that we are talking about having long-term effects and using the data to get long-term effects. So if, for example, you've worked a shift work, there are conditions that you can get with shift work where your body clock completely changes. So you've essentially trained whatever gene you've got there, whatever gene combination, you've trained it differently, and it's led to a different outcome, which is exactly the concept of our business and our company and our recommendations.
Right.
We know what the genes are, and we figure out how to train them to get to your goal, which might be different to what they naturally should do.
Okay.
So shift work and stuff like that could easily flip the clock gene.
Okay, now what about my next result here?
PGC1A, this is an endurance gene, a so-called endurance, because virtually every endurance athlete will have a G on their gene profile. They don't necessarily need both Gs, but they need a G. If they had, you were asking me what's the flip side. This isn't the flip side of yours, but there's one result you can get is SS. And about 7% of the population is a PGC1A SS. If you're an SS, you have a natural ceiling on your VO2 max. You will never, ever, ever be an endurance athlete. And you'll get to a point, if you train for a marathon, that you just, no matter how hard you train, if you could have the best coach in the world, you'll never have a good time in a marathon. So you don't have that at least.
Right,
yeah.
right.
I don't think you'll be running too many marathons anytime soon.
No,
but,
I've never liked endurance stuff.
Yeah, it's not going to work for you, dude.
Okay.
So you have some endurance capacity. You wouldn't have any restrictions on your endurance capacity.
Okay, and what's my final gene?
Final one's a metabolism gene, and according to this, you probably zip through dieting pretty well. You probably, dieting's not easy for anyone.
Right.
But compared to most people, you'd be on the easier side of losing fat. You'd get through it pretty easily.
I lose weight pretty easily. If I just eat less, my weight plummets.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's interesting.
That's UCP2. It's uncoupling proteins. So what uncoupling means is it uncouples the relationship between the calories you eat and how much of those calories you burn. So it means if you have a UCP activity, it means a lot of the energy that is in your body when you eat food that comes in gets burnt off instead of being able to be stored.
You're very thermogenic.
So it's not there. You're thermogenic.
But it's also efficiency as well, because actually
the opposite's efficiency.
If you had an efficient metabolism, then the food you eat would be stored, the energy would be stored.
Exactly.
Right.
If you've got an inefficient metabolism, you're going to burn off the energy immediately. So, for example, lose it as
Right.
heat. So it's quite interesting that when people talk about fast metabolisms, what they're talking about is an inefficient metabolism.
Inefficiency.
It's like having a hole in your gas tank.
Exactly.
Which is ideal for a bodybuilder.
Exactly.
That's what you want.
Yep.
Okay, now let's just wrap up with one more thing. Where are we going from here? Are you guys going to advance to 8, 10, 12, 20 markers one day?
We've already got
where we are at the moment, we're growing quite quickly. We're growing very fast, actually. And we've got hundreds of genes that we're working with. But like I said earlier, we have a full research department now. So we're working with all the major genes that have an association to sports performance, nutrition and supplements, but we're also doing a lot of our own research as well. You're going to see some pretty interesting academic papers towards the end of this year. We have Oxford University PhD geneticist Dr. Stuart Grice as our genetics research director. We have Dr. Samantha de Comble, a Birmingham University PhD geneticist, and we have Mark, and we have people from Cambridge University, Oxford University, and all the big institutions. So you're going to see some very, very good research. And overall, the quality of this science it blows my mind. The weekly research update meetings now, because my role is more business now, right? The weekly research update meetings, I'm blown away.
Well, I look forward to getting more of my markers tested in the future as you guys advance the product.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, I'm all over this science coming in to help us get bigger with real valuable studies. So I appreciate you guys coming on the show.
Cool.
Mark,
very nice, Ron.
Thanks, Ron.
Dan,
cheers, buddy.
Mark and Dan from Muscle Genes. I'm really excited to put this to the test. Big Ron from the Body Power UK Expo 2014, day 1. We'll be back.
That was cool. Thanks, Ron. That was good, man.